Witwatersrand University, 1963.
You have to say it with the accent. Witwatersrand University.
Oh, I like it. I like it. Very nice. Swedish?
No,
Close.
not Swedish.
It's close.
South African.
All right, that'll work. Certified hypnotherapist and Reiki Master, was born in Johannesburg, South Africa. In the early 1970s, a homeopathic introduced her to England's Bach flower essences. Patricia relocated to the U.S. in 1981, where she pursued her artwork. A favorite subject is flowers, as well as her fascination with essences. Here in California, she studied with leading flower essence producers and was herself certified as a practitioner by the California Flower Essence Society in 1988. She presently utilizes over 3,000 essences in her practice, including 60 that she has co-created. She has lectured in the U.S., South Africa, and Mexico, conducted numerous courses and workshops, and has contributed to articles to several holistic health publications. She works with adults, children, and animals located in San Mateo, California. She also works by phone. Patricia's website is www.patsgarden.com.
Thank you, and I have cards.
And she has cards.
Thank you very much. And I don't have to hold a mic. Oh, that's great. Right. I think I've been to the bathroom 3 times already. Feeling nervous. My first slide is welcome and greetings from the nature kingdom. This is, I'm very right-brained, not very left-brained, and a lot of my work is from intuition and feelings and inner messages that come to me, and also I use a pendulum in my work as a last resort when I haven't, when I need to fine-tune to what I'm doing. I think I will just move on. I'm going to start mentioning Paracelsus, a 16th century philosopher and teacher who talked about the doctrine of signatures. This comes from physically observing a plant and trying to work out from what the plant looks like what it would be good for. This one is called bleeding heart, and you'll see that it's a heart that looks like it's bleeding. And these are all going to be flowers that I use a lot in my practice. The bleeding heart is used for an emotional breakup, or somebody's lost somebody, a death in the family, and one is longing to be reconnected with that person. The bleeding heart seems to be able to separate and help them move beyond it. It's been really effective. Ways of knowing what a plant is about is, first of all, this physical observation of the plant, what it looks like, how close to the ground it is, how tall it is, where the leaves are, and I'll point out some of those issues with the different flowers. I will mention sunflower later. You'll see the size of sunflowers. Each plant has got folklore associated with it. A lot of them were used as herbs and healers many, many years ago, mostly by women, and there's always a history around the plants as well. I haven't studied that extensively. I've really just studied what the plants do and how they heal, and how they heal on these levels, these levels of the higher energies. These are a form of energy healing. One of the ways of knowing what a plant's about is to attune to the plant. Go into meditation and look at it and imagine that plant within your body. Close your eyes and breathe and relax and focus, and then possibly messages will come out from it. This is one of the ways that the teachers or the people who make essences have been able to pinpoint what essences do. They then test them on people. People try the essences and take them. I have some essences here that I've been taking, which I'll talk about. And the way of taking an essence is, I missed 4 drops under the tongue. If it's on you, it's okay too. I did have a client once who didn't want to take any essences. She was really nervous about it. And she'd actually been constipated for 17 days, and she'd been to Stanford, and nobody had been able to get this brick to move through her. And I gave her essences, which she put on her head, on her crown chakra, and within a day or so, everything opened up, and she was fine. So I just want to tell you things that I've had in my experience. I'm not making up the stories, but it's been... I gave her what she needed. I think one of them was chicory, which is one of the Dr. Bach essences for holding on. She couldn't release, and the reason for holding on is because she didn't get enough mothering. Her mothering was inadequate. Mother had abandoned her or something. So that kind of person needs mothering. The chicory essence is a beautiful, I haven't brought those pictures along, it's a beautiful blue. The Madonna's clothes are usually that blue. And that chicory was what Dr. Bach realized was for letting go and not being so possessive and controlling. So it's letting go of control as well. So that was one of her essences that worked. The next one that I brought up, these I'm going to have 7 that I talk with a bit more, but this one is just star tulip, and it's just so utterly beautiful. The whole plant, the whole flower is just over an inch across. It's a very tiny flower. It's also called cat's ears, and if you look at it, it looks as if there are 3 ears of a cat. And what it does when it's taken is it enhances one's intuition. It helps men who take it become more intuitive, opens them up to more female listening, careful listening, spiritual listening. So I put that up there hoping that as you look at these flowers, you will get more the feeling of what they can bring you. Because each of them, in looking at them, can bring you its message. And this is what I'm out for tonight, because I just have a short time. 4 levels of healing that I believe need to be dealt with. Physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Disease and illness reflect an imbalance on one or more of these levels. Responsibility, we are the sum total of our thought patterns, so at some level we're responsible for who we are. Disease or illness can come from choices we've made that are inharmonious. Essences do not remove disease, they enlighten us to healthier choices. And in working on an energetic level, they enlighten us on an energetic level. We may not know that we've let go of something until it's let go and it changes. So it's not totally conscious, the healing, every time. Okay, I'm going to start my first of my 7 proper essences. This one is Selfheal, and the Latin name is Prunella vulgaris. Selfheal has a square stem. It has leaves opposite, so going down the stem, they're opposite. And the flower is shaped like a pagoda. So it's based on a square. The whole thing is based on a square. When we take that essence, by reconnecting us with our essential self, our negative patterning can dissolve and we can become more authentic. The Selfheal brings in a pattern of balance, so that if we're out of balance and in an inharmonious state, by bringing in Selfheal and taking it regularly over a week or so, sometimes even quicker than that, we will start to make decisions for our healing that will bring us balance. We will look for something that's not toxic for us, but will be more energizing and naturalizing and healing. So this is one of the flowers that's been really wonderful for that. And I usually use it for somebody who has an illness and they have no idea which way to turn. They don't know what to do. They could be in a panic. They could be doing everything under the sun and far too much, instead of focusing in on finding balance and becoming more natural, more healed in a natural way. So Selfheal is one of the most important essences. There have been reports at the Flower Essence Society of people using Selfheal and finding that their cancer's gone into remission. I did have a situation with a man I didn't know. He had melanoma on his shoulder, and I'd given him essences. I had no idea that he had that, and he'd been to Stanford to have it checked and looked at and everything. And he suddenly told me, I think 6 months later, that since he was on the essences, the melanoma had actually sealed across the bottom. It no longer had roots going down. This is what he told me, and he was very excited about it. And I mentioned this to the Flower Essence Society, and they said, well, they're not allowed to talk about it, but it does seem to change things. It turns things around. California wild rose is a very special rose. I use it very much in my practice. I work with a lot of children, and this is one that is about incarnation. The roses all fight for life. That's why they have thorns, because they fight for life. If you try to pick them, they go for you. And they will try to survive whatever. And if you think about people wanting to court each other, they will bring roses. Let's get together. Let's make a life together. It's roses. Encourage life. And the negative of it, the negative energy, is apathy. So when there's apathy and people don't care and they don't want to go on, I would give a rose as an essence. The wild rose of Dr. Bach is very similar, and that's the one he uses also for people who linger in illness for a long time and don't make an effort to get well. I use that one there. But California wild rose is particularly one that I use for children who, for some reason, through maybe a birth trauma or a difficult birth or difficulty in the home or stress in the parents, children that have not incarnated in their bodies completely, and they're almost like they're there part of the time. They look like they're there, you can't tell anything's wrong, but they're not in their bodies, and they're not grounded in their bodies. And once they start to be given this essence, they start to come in more, and they can actually get work done. Things change a lot. And I find this very interesting. I have made up I've made up a list of essences that I use for children that have been diagnosed with ADD, and Flower Essence Society published a paper on it in 1995. Since then, most of those essences still do what I say, but I sometimes add others. But when a child, usually a little boy, who's brought to me because he's not focusing and he's jumping around and he's not getting anything done, is given this essence and a few others with it, depending on what he needs. It's particular for each child. I get a message from the mother, and the teacher said, what meds is he on? When did he start the meds? Because he's completely different. So I know it's doing this. I recently worked with a woman aged 58 in Philadelphia who wrote to me that she is very ADD, and can I possibly help her? She's tried a lot of things, but she didn't want to go onto any heavy drugs. And I started working with her at the end of March, and within 2 months, she was a happy person and able to do a whole lot of things. She'd even connected with a dietitian and was getting her diet cleaned up and her leaky gut fixed up so that her brains would work, because all of what you said before earlier is absolutely true. It all depends on what we eat. At least a lot depends on what we eat and how well we eat. So the essences are working with her. She's still on the same formula. I gave her 11 essences. I find there's something magical about the number 11. I don't look for 11, but so many times I find that I get 11 for somebody, and they only take them once a day or once every second day, just 4 drops once a day, and life changes. And it was very sweet, because she wrote to me, she said, my brain tells me that all I'm taking is water, but my body is feeling so different, and I'm able to diet, and I'm able to not have the things I was wanting, and I'm really feeling so much better, and I feel so happy for the first time. So she's on her way. I expect to be changing her essences at some point, but she's on these this formula for 4 months. That ADD article is on my website on the page with links. That article I did then, and of course I have other essences I use now. I'll mention which ones. So California wild rose is one of the really important ones that I use, especially for kids. The next one is the yarrows. And if you look at the little yarrow, you can just imagine picking the yarrow and holding it like an umbrella over you. This beautiful little umbrella. And its Latin name is Achillea millefolium, 1,000 leaves, and named after Achilles. And if you know Achilles, he was the soldier who went into battle, or the Greek who went into battle, and so that he would be safe and not vulnerable, his mother dipped him in the river Styx, held him by the ankles, and where she held him, he didn't get covered in the water, and that's where he was vulnerable. You know, my Achilles heel. She held him by the heel. So it's about vulnerability, and this essence is the white yarrow I use for people who feel vulnerable in life. If they're vulnerable amongst other people, if a woman walks down the road and feels that somebody's going to catch her and rape her and all this kind of fear, this is that sort of vulnerability. It's also a very good one for allergies. I find it's really helpful for allergies, because allergies come along when we're feeling vulnerable, vulnerable to the pollen in the air. The aura that's around us is not protecting us for some reason. Yarrow heals that aura that's around us. So I use the yarrow very much. My husband here loves yarrow. He gets allergic, takes a drop of yarrow and stops sneezing after 20 sneezes. It stops right away. So the yarrow is really very good. I was going to bring you some pink yarrow. I had some at home and walked out without it. The pink yarrow comes in all different shades of pink. It's very beautiful. It looks the same but pink. And the pink yarrow is for people like a healer perhaps, who, if you're with somebody else, you begin to pick up what they're complaining about. Somebody comes in to see you and they've got a headache, and you start feeling, oh, my head's starting to hurt. So pink yarrow helps you unconsciously pick up the emotions of people around you, gives you protection, so you can stay strong. I am taking yellow yarrow to speak to you today because I found that I get really nervous. But having yellow yarrow helps me. It helps me feel it's a challenge instead of a terror to stand up in front of a group of people that I don't know. And the yellow yarrow is one that I needed. They have a golden yarrow too, which actually seems to shine with the yellow, with the yellowness of it. And that one has been used for people on stage who are going out into an audience, and actors are sometimes incredibly sensitive and feel the energy of the audience, and this gives them the protection that they need. So those are the yarrows. Those are about yarrows. And essences can be combined. I combine them from essences from Australia with essences from Holland and from Alaska. The desert, I've got sets from all of them, and it's just incredible. They combine well. Mariposa Lily, that's doing something funny. I'll have help. I touched it and it... Can you take that off? Where are you? Sorry. I take off that thing in the front. Left comes with me wherever I go. Thanks. What did I do? Okay, I touched the wrong thing. Mariposa Lily was actually the essence that was made when I did my training at the California Essence Society. Okay, you don't have to crawl. Mariposa Lily is for remembering that we're bonded to the earth. We're grounded in the earth, and it's an incredible essence for any child that has been adopted, or has lost touch with the mom, or the mom has left the home, or there's been mothering that has been less than unconditional, difficult mothering. And taking Mariposa Lily helps you feel as if you are mothered by the earth, and you don't need a physical mother because you have this. So it's a very incredibly wonderful healing essence. Mariposa Lily brings nurturing by the Divine Mother. I've used this one many times for people. I've taken it myself. The message is that even though I'm growing up among the rocks, my situation is rocky, my bulb is safe in Mother Earth. Baby Blue Eyes is a really beautiful little flower too, and this one is for lack of trust. I'm losing my mic. It's for lack of trust, and sometimes when the dad has not been around, or the dad has left the picture, or there've been trauma around the father, father had to go to war or whatever it was, and the mother would probably be nervous and not trusting, and the child would grow up without trust. Sometimes a woman would not be able to find a partner because she doesn't feel as if she can find anyone to trust, that she could trust with herself. So baby blue eyes is one that returns trust and innocence. Sunflower, and I have one here, stands tall, very tall flower, balances the inner masculine and the feminine, and it's for those who don't know who they are. And when you take sunflower, you'll start feeling that I know who I am, I can stand in the world and be proud of who I am, and do, not with too much ego, but just balanced ego. You can be in the world. This is the energy of sunflower. This is a really big one up there. These are today's from the grocery store. But you'll see how tall they are compared with the tiny buttercup, which is close to the ground and often goes well with sunflower. I put in a teasel to show you something interesting. Can you see the teasel there? This teasel was, there's a teasel protocol that was worked out by a fellow named David Dalton. His company is called Delta Gardens, and he's in New Hampshire. And he was working on Lyme's disease, on how to help people with Lyme's. And he started working with some trees in his garden, and with the teasel that was growing around the trees, and there were deer with these ticks. So he did a lot of investigation around it. It's quite a long story. But what he worked out was that at different stages of the life cycle of the teasel head, it has rows of flowers around it that seem to equal the areas of the body. So this would probably be the second and the fourth chakra. But there's another teasel, time of teasel, where it's the crown chakra and the base chakra. So he made essences from the teasels at different stages of its growth, and he made a kit called the Teasel Kit. And he started to experiment with it, and he managed to cure Lyme's disease in himself and his wife and the dogs. And he started to teach this protocol, and I've been to 2 of his workshops where he has taught that again, and I've been working with people who have been struggling with Lyme's disease. He later brought out another kit that works with the diseases that come out of Lyme's disease, all these complicated things that happen. And I've been using those too for some people. But the few that I did work with that had been diagnosed with Lyme's seemed to be quite free of it. I sometimes get a call from the one woman saying, "Oh my God, we were out and we found a tick. Can you tell me if we need to start the teasel again?" And they haven't. They haven't needed to. They haven't had a repercussion, and it's probably been about 3 or 4 years since then. The Teasel protocol is a process of using the drops for about 6 to 8 treatments, and then the client is actually able to purchase the drops and go off and test themselves and take a drop when they need it. So it's a very simple process, and somehow the energies that come through the teasel go into the body, and I've learned from the clients that I've had that they can actually feel it moving around, and the numbers and extent of their disharmony in the body reduces as they take the teasel. So it's been highly effective. So I wanted to tell you about that, just because I think that Lyme's is all over the place still so much, and it's much better to be treated with the flower essences than it would be to use antibiotics, although most people rush first for antibiotics, which is understandable. It's better if they're off antibiotics when they use this teasel. Those were the 7 flowers that I thought I would share today, but I also thought I would share a gemstone, and the one I've chosen was Opal, because you can see all the colors in the opal. The light's a little bit strong here. And taking the energy of opal, which is made the same way as an essence is made, taking that recharges the chakras and the aura with the full spectrum of colors. So if somebody is depleted and fatigued, and you might be depleted and fatigued after tonight, hopefully this will perk you up a little bit and give you energy again. I work with a lot of gemstones. A lot of them are made in Alaska, and other companies have made them as well. The Alaskan essences are some that I use a lot. I also work with environmental energies, which are, Steve Johnson made an essence like called the Northern Lights, underneath the green Northern Lights in Alaska. And this is an energy for feeding the heart. It's a beautiful essence. He's made many glacier essences, so I use those also in my practice. And I think that was all I thought I had time for. But I'm happy to answer questions. Otherwise, we have my little granddaughter. She's now 7. Thank you. Any?
We have questions.
We have questions. Yes, sure.
Yes, I was wondering with essential oils, is it better to swallow them or to rub them on your skin?
You know, these are not oils. These don't have an aroma. And these are flower essences. They're energetic like homeopathy.
Oh, okay.
And they can be rubbed on the skin. You can use them topically. If you have stiff shoulders and you get the 5-flower formula, which is like rescue remedy, and rub it on your shoulder, you'll find you're going, and you'll feel much better. So they do work topically, but they're not oils and they don't smell. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to ask a question, and that is, what would you use for a pet that is traumatized, afraid of its own shadow, just hides under the bed, a cat?
I've actually, why am I talking so loudly? Sorry. I've worked with quite a few animals. I would try first with 5-flower formula or rescue remedy. And have you used that with it? I would be happy to try because I have rescue remedy form in about 12 different companies. So there are lots of things. Actually, there was a dog. I was working with a couple of children, one particular child, and they lived in the East Bay. And the mother would come with this child to see me. And I said I also worked with animals. She said, well, I would very much like you to do something about this dog we have. The dog was coming with her across the bay, across the bridge all the time. And the dog was a rescue dog from the disaster in, hold on, where was it? In New Orleans, Florida, yeah. It was, and it had lost its sibling as well. Apparently there were 2 of them. I think they were Labradors, black Labradors. And she just took the one of them. And every time she went over the water, the dog would freak out and be absolutely terrified. So I never saw the dog. I never worked with it. I never did that. But I said, let me see what I can do. And I looked at my essences and actually took out the pendulum and went over the boxes. And I came across one called Red Mangrove, which I bought. And it was in my set from Green Hope Farm. And I bought it not really knowing what it was for, but because my pendulum had said, you should buy this one, you'll need it. So I do this. I follow my angels. They tell me what to do. And I gave the dog Red Mangrove. And when I read up what it was about, it said, if your boat is caught in a hurricane and it's tied to a red mangrove, it's not going anywhere. So it was something that stabilizes from a hurricane. And this animal had been in a hurricane. And the connection was made. My hair stood up, and I knew that it was going to work, and it did. It worked. I started to cry. It was really so touching that helped that dog. So depending on what happened, and if you don't know what happened to the dog, I can probably find out by tracking through checking. My pendulum is very helpful. So let me try.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much,
Okay.
Pat.
Thank you. Thank you.